it makes a huge difference for like Scispot and our organization. It's also kind of fun to do to get to chat with you like outside of the typical onboarding sessions. So really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Um, so I was reading about TURI in a little bit more depth a couple of days ago, um, and like I guess I would consider myself like a righteous type of person. So it was really nice to read about TURI's mission, and I'm really happy that SciSpot can be your partner on your way to your mission.
That's
Um,
wonderful to hear.
yeah, so I'd love to like start with maybe what is the Toxic Waste Reduction Institute, and what do you do there?
So, the Toxic Use Reduction Institute is one of three organizations that is part of the Toxic Use Reduction Act of Massachusetts, which was passed in 1989 as a way to be able to help manufacturers with identifying hazardous and higher hazard chemicals and being able to reduce that usage. So, the Department of Environmental Protection is the regulatory side. Then we have our sister organization, the Office of Technical Assistance, that offers non disclosure and helps them, similar to us, with hands on assessments of how they can stay in regulation, uh, but also to look at reducing toxic chemicals. And then TURI, the Toxic Use Reduction Institute, is the research branch. Like we do more of the training. So companies and uh, businesses that use these chemicals that are listed underneath the TURA program, they pay fees, but those fees can actually be used for like free laboratory services here. Um, they can also be able to get free resources to learn how to just reduce and improve their sustainability as well. So it's been a wonderful program that has been growing and we've been making a difference here in Massachusetts.
That's so nice and like impactful work that you're doing. I'm wondering maybe can you speak to like what it means for you to work at TURI? What's motivated you to embark on this mission?
So I started as a student here actually for my undergrad volunteering because TURI is located at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. We have a really unique opportunity to be able to engage students, both undergrad and graduate students, to participate in learning how to apply toxic use reduction to their major, to their future industry, uh, and also to get hands on experience, laboratory experience. So I first learned about even assessing sanitizers and disinfectants. That got me more into the microbial side of things in the laboratory setting. And then I stayed on for my master's. And this is one of those organizations where it's never a dull day. I could be working with aerospace to a instrument manufacturer to a community organization like the Brazilian Women's Group, for example, that are looking at immigrant professional cleaners that go into homes and looking at safer chemical processes. So we hit a variety of different areas. And for me, it marries my love of lab work with community outreach and public health and gets to combine them in a way that many scientists, I feel like we kind of lack that interconnection sometimes with what we're doing to the actual application of end users. So it's a really great opportunity to be able to connect those inventors or the researchers that are even going and working for another company to find solutions for their particular application, and whether it's assisting them with their own research of looking for safer chemicals or even talk to the end users to give them critical feedback on, yeah, your end users want safer chemicals. How can we help support you to switch? So for me, it's just been a wonderful way to expand my knowledge in engineering and molecular cellular biotech, biomed, and chemistry as well.
That sounds like a dream. Honestly, as a scientist, I have always longed for that kind of position where you can do some tinkering, but also you get to still stay connected to the greater good and, probably what got you into, scientific research, so that's really cool. Um, on a personal level, I'm curious, do you work with any PFAS? Do you have any commentary on it? I know we're
That's definitely an area we are highlighting. So we have strategic priorities that we are looking at. One of them is PFAS, material and byproducts. We're also looking at flame retardants, which can sometimes overlap with PFAS, especially for their physiochemical properties that they're utilized for, whether that be flammability or, like addressing flammability or even waterproofing, all those different applications. And then um, we also are looking at halogenated solvents. But when it comes to the PFAS, so one area we're looking at right now, for example, is food containers and the lining that are in them, because a lot of them contain PFAS, and looking at bio-based. And it's really refreshing because you get to see the companies that are making a difference. And I think if you had asked me this question maybe 6, 8 years ago, I would probably be like, I don't I don't really want to talk about it. It's overwhelming. We don't have a lot of solutions. But I think with the knowledge and understanding of both scientists and citizens of this concern that it's impacting all of us, there have been a lot more really cool companies coming out. Like, there was one we got to engage with called Unsmudgeable, for example, and they're looking at a bio-based coating that goes on glasses, and it keeps you from having to use, 'cause PFAS is normally like the coating that they'll put on there to keep smudges if you see like anti-smudging. So they're looking at one which is really cool. I guess like a plant-based material disperses your oil. So you're not even having to wipe it, it'll just on stuff. And that even makes me think of like a variety of different applications. And it got me to think about even the fact that contacts have PFAS in them. And I think it's opening up the conversation more for us to really look at the materials we're using. And as overwhelming as it can be, I think there are more people out there who are excited about investing in solutions and brainstorming. So I think it's more hopeful, if anything, that we're heading in the right direction. I hope that answered your question.
totally, yeah, that's the reassurance that I needed about PFAS and future. Uh, no, that's really cool, and from my understanding, you're working with a lot of different clients and a lot of different samples. I'm wondering how has Scispot been able to help you with that so far, and how do you see Scispot helping you in the long term?
With Scispot, uh, when it comes to laboratory management systems and even having electronic laboratory notebook, before how TURI has run, and it's just sort of one of those, I think for a while, the manual process of record keeping was fine, having it in paper format and then going into, you know, however we went about it, which was more of our database that we have, which is cleanersolutions.org, which is supposed to be putting in your report that we do for the testing so that users can then access it. And we're still going to keep that. But one area of issue that I really wanted to highlight with our group here was we really lacked that data security that we have, especially when you're putting in those notebooks. You're not getting your checks and balances as much. And we are aiming to also apply for our accreditation for ISO 17025. And part of that is really ensuring that we had software that could do that for us and grow with us, and not having to waste as much time in constantly, not so much individual training, because individual training is important, but I think streamlining the process to ensure that what is being done and what is being documented is, especially when working with students. Like I said, we hire students here of all different backgrounds. Some of them are like getting their feet wet, and we're training them to ones that, they're much more confident. And so I see Scispot as an opportunity for us to almost as like an onboarding for students to really kind of showcase their work over time. Because I know talking to you guys, post their graduation, they could still access if they wanted to certain parts of it. If I wanted them to be able to have a report ready that we scrubbed down that they could then show to a um a future hiring committee or someone to be able to showcase their work, we can have samples ready for them to utilize without compromising our capabilities of ensuring that whatever we're dealing with, whether that is an NDA project that should be more locked down, we have that capability, but we also have the other side of things where um, we're just making sure that those checks and balances are in place for QC as well.
Totally, totally. And I think about myself, and like my experience in the lab and using paper notebooks and just the, I guess, cracks that exist in the process. Like a lot of it relies on good faith in those that are conducting the work. And, you know, even with the best intentions, people can still make mistakes. And I think, you know, Scispot and, some other LIMS systems as well, they make it a lot easier to stay compliant, and be flexible as well.
And I definitely think it helps with allowing for more assistance with diversity too, especially for those who maybe they struggle due to physical disabilities or whatever of being able to write for long periods of time, having to draw out all of those tables, writing out the protocol by hand. That can be a lot on someone, especially if we're thinking about ensuring that there is equity in the laboratory setting to allow people to be able to participate at the same level. And I think you brought up a really good point of even the best of intentions. I know some people who aren't confident in their writing style where it's not as legible, and that can really cause issues. And it's not on them, it's just that's how they write. And I think it makes more sense to utilize this type of platform that can even the playing field and give, I think, those students more confidence in the work that they are able to collect as well. And knowing that we can not have to second guess it and wonder, "Is that oh, I know you wrote that in. Is that an E or is that like an 8 or a 5? I can't tell." But, like, those sort of things, and I think it gets rid of that so that they can focus on the science and less on the prep.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really nice feedback to hear, actually. I'm taking that one to heart. Um, and so I know that you and your team have been pretty active in the platform, and honestly, you're like an ideal user profile for it. So I'm curious if you have any advice for our newly onboarded users or folks that are considering SciSpot. Like, what do you think has made you so successful in the early stages and as you've grown?
I think one piece of advice I would definitely give anyone going on, because thank you, that made me feel really good, because I think I feel like we're a little bit behind, but I feel like that's sort of our own personal standards sometimes. That's just how I am, where I'm like, "Oh, I wanna dive in and just get it all done." So I think my advice to anyone who's hopping on the platform is really your group is so supportive, and I think lean in and don't be afraid to talk to the Scispot team about those challenges, whether that be, maybe something came up because changing a full system is a lot and work doesn't stop. So don't be disheartened if you're not at the point, especially depending on how large your team is for the implementation or, you know, I'm thinking bandwidth in general. Like, don't beat yourself up. I think just recalibrating and checking with the group has really helped because it makes you feel like at least you're keeping on track in a way and holding yourself accountable, but you're also acknowledging the fact of how complex implementing a new system is, especially if you haven't had anything to start with, or if your materials need a lot of tweaking to fit not so much your platform, but I think any platform. It has like to go from a paper outdated manual process to a digital one. It's sort of like that tedious, like the first parts are going to be hard, but once you settle in, I can already see the benefits for example, we purchased a scanning scan gun, and we also got a printer. And we know over time that's going to help us with inventory management and really getting good metrics that are going to help us, especially where we offer third party certification to companies that are registering or trying to register their product, their cleaning product or device with um, EPA Safer Choice or Green Seal or Eco Logo, or even just to get marketing information. And having those systems in place will allow us to be better for them and also better for us, especially at, like I said, where we have students that come and go. So we're not disrupted. We can kind of keep going. So that's what I would give as advice is be kind to yourself and understand it is complex, but it's worth it. And you'll start seeing the benefits and just how it's going to allow you to grow, especially if you're a smaller organization or your budget is really limited. It will help you be able to see that growth over time as you build more members onto your team.
That's really nice to hear, and, I'm taking these words of wisdom for, like, all of life, true. It's true, and I'm really happy to hear that, you've been feeling supported and, like, you're still accomplishing things, with Scispot despite having maybe ambitious goals. Uh, yeah, it's really nice and validating to hear from your side.
Happy.
Um, and looking to the future, what are your hopes and dreams for Scispot? Is there ever a point where you think you'll say, "Okay, I'm good to go. We've accomplished everything we sought out to with Scispot."
I think there's so many different tools and integrations that I've definitely been exploring, and I'm trying to hold myself back to focus on the fundamentals. Let's get us there where, it's we can streamline our process more for onboarding students. My hope too is that it can also be a way to not only capture our equipment usage, but also show our general impact. Like, I see this as being a really great way of us saying, "Oh, we worked with this many companies that reduce this many chemicals," or, "Oh my gosh, there's a bunch that are in this area. Maybe we could host a working group." Um, and I think the data, there are so many different opportunities, I think, with SciSpot, and that's what drew us to this compared to other ones as well, was it's a lot more flexible, but not so flexible in that good way. Like, you want it to have an interface that allows you to grow with it, especially depending on the metrics you're trying to capture, but at the same time, not so boundless that it becomes not productive. And I think there's functionalities you can add to it, and I love the generation of those different, like, charts that you can build from it to make it easier for me to even report to our director here of saying, "You know what? This is what our past year, maybe we should change our prices. Like, I noticed that we're using more here," or, "Hey, I'm noticing we're using this piece of equipment a lot. Maybe we should start planning to purchase another one of these because we have backlog in that area." So I see it as a continual improvement process with it, and I don't know if I can say exactly what I can see fully in the future, but I see ease of automation, and I see capabilities for us to finally, instead of stuck in a paper pen platform, these wonderful ideas and metrics finally coming to life that I think will be able to showcase to others what we're doing here and also allow for better transparency, which is really important to us, of showcasing, like, all right, where's the state money going to? And also the fee for services, how those go back for students, and really showcase even um because, like, I can see it as me even keeping track of portfolios on there for students to kind of say, "Oh, we had like 10 chemists that worked with us this past year, and all of them worked on these different areas. Maybe we can hit up this section now and have them work on that as well." And I was even sharing this with UMass Lowell's EHS group, and talking to them about maybe this is something we can share so that way they can see what we're doing on how we're keeping track of our inputs and outputs. And could we be an example to the university of a way to further integrate that process of EHS, but also research to have better transparency overall while keeping security and not having like worrying about certain protocols that we don't want to share being shared, but still giving output metrics that are consistent that then they can compare across the board instead of having it just be on EHS.
Totally, totally. That's a really nice and thorough answer. I think like having access to information that was previously really difficult to get. Like I just thinking about some of my past work, trying to culminate a record of how frequently an instrument was used, or to be able to say, "Hey, I think we need to get another set of pipettes, or we need another centrifuge because it's being used all the time." Having that information easily accessible for your team, and then also to point to your higher ups, your managers, and um, demonstrate value. So I'm glad that you're sharing that vision with some of your colleagues. It's super nice to hear, and I'm super happy to hear that um, your experience with Scispot's been so nice, and you feel welcomed. And we're really excited to have you on the team and continue to grow with you. Um,
You guys have been lovely, and each one of you, and it's so nice to have a group that I can tell that you guys are just as passionate about your product. And it's kind of nice. It's not just the sales pitch. Like I can tell that you guys really enjoy where you work, and I don't know. It makes it more pleasurable to work with people who care about the work that they're doing.
Totally, totally. And I'm remembering like a support phone call I had to do the other day, and I just wanted to ask her, like, "Are you okay?" So I'm glad that we communicate that to you guys too, because we are excited about working here, and we're excited about Scispot in its current state and its future state, and developing with our colleagues, like the folks at TURI.
That's great. I'm excited.
Thanks a lot for joining. Did you have anything else you wanted to add or share? Thoughts, comments, rude gestures.
Just I'm excited to see where this goes. I think another idea that just came to mind too. So I mentioned like we have the Cleaner Solutions database that acts as that. Like I can see integrations working with you guys and coming up with a way to have it streamlined, so we're not having to duplicate reports to each one. But it's just been a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me today to kind of share this experience working with you guys, but also just our hopes and dreams for our lab and getting to share and and work with you guys. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Alicia. It's a real pleasure. And I think we can look to our next onboarding session with you guys. We can look forward to that. I think the week after next,
Yep.
and carry on with the implementation.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Alicia. Take care.
Take care.